All right, welcome back. Here we are finishing sample exam 1. So in the last video I did questions 1 through 5, and now I'm going to 6, 7, and 8. So here's some other things to take a look at when you're reading the questions. It says write a function called product. Now it didn't say the word function definition, but if it says write a function called product, you need to assume that it's asking for a function definition. Okay, so please, I will try my best to write function definition, but if it says to write a function, that means I want you to implement the function. If it says write a function call, that means I just want you to call the function. Function prototype, you just write the statement that describes the function. All right, so the name of the function is product. And so it has parentheses, and it's a block of code because it's a definition. And the function will prompt the user to enter integers one by one and calculate the product of all the numbers entered until the user enters a 0 to stop. The function will return that product. So if you're going to be calculating a product and returning that product, the data type would be an integer. And it's a definition, so it's a block of code. So we're going to continue to get numbers from the user until the user enters a 0 to stop. So I'm going to choose to use a while loop to do this. Some other things that you can look for is indications that there's going to be a loop in this. It'll prompt the users to enter and calculate until, like the word until, or continues to do something, or repeatedly does something. Those are words that indicate to you that there is a loop in this question. All right, so I need to have, of course, I need to have a total. And since it is a product, I want to initialize that product to 1, not 0. And I need to have the number that's entered by the user. Oops. All right, so what's going to happen? The user is going to enter a number. I'm going to take that number, multiply it by my ongoing total that I have, and then return that at the end. So let's see if I need any more variables. So I'm going to choose to use a while loop. So there's a couple of things I could do. I could initialize my number to 1. That would make me go right into the while loop. Or I could initialize my number to user input. So I'm going to choose to initialize my number with user input. So this is a while loop. You need initialization, test, and update. So I'm going to choose to use user input. So I have to prompt. So I say enter. And then I have to scan. And then, so this is the initialization for my while loop. Then my while loop test is going to make sure that the user did not give me a 0. And then what am I going to do if I do not get a 0? I'm going to continue to calculate a product. So I will say total equals total times num. And then I need to update. I need to get another number from the user. So how do I get another number from the user? I ask for it. I scan it in. And then I test. So that's what the loop will do. It will test. So at the end, I have calculated this product. I ask for the number. I make sure it's not a 0. I multiply it to my total. I ask for another number. I make sure it's not 0. It will go into my total. I ask for another number. I make sure it's not 0. It goes into my total. Eventually, when the user does enter a 0, it says the user has to enter a 0. So negative numbers are still going to go into my total. So eventually, when the user enters a 0, my loop will stop and I will return the total. Okay, so then I'm going to return total, and that's the end of question number 6. Let's move to question number 7. All right, question number 7 has 3 parts. So we have to read the question. Now this is one that has a complete, almost a complete program, except right here if you read, it says you do not need to include the comments or preprocessor directives. But we do need to have a main function, we need to have function definitions, and we need to have function prototypes. And in our main function, we're going to make function calls, and we have 2 functions, getL and getD. So we're going to need to create an entire program. We don't need to add the preprocessor directives or comments, but we do need to put the function prototypes, the function definitions, and the function calls from within the main. So let's see what the functions do. So the first function, getL, it takes no arguments and returns a character, and it gets a character from the user and returns it, okay, asks for it. Function 2 is a function called getD that takes no arguments and returns a double, and this function is going to get a double from the user and return it. All right, so let's move on and see if we can do this program. All right, so first we're going to do our function prototypes. So our function prototypes, we have getL that takes no arguments and returns a character. And then we have getD that takes no arguments and returns an integer. So these are our prototypes. Then below we have our main function. And then below that we will put our function definitions. So I'm going to do the function calls here and put the function definitions over here on the side over here. So the definitions are going to be over here. So I have room to have it all on one screen. All right, so the first function is called getL. It takes no arguments and it returns a character. So this function is going to declare a temporary character, ask for a character, scan in that character. Oops, that's a character, so I should use %C. And return that character. Okay, now I have my integer. Oops, it's not an integer. I've already messed up and didn't read it. It says returns a double, so I need to change this. Also over here is a double return type. So this is a double called getD that declares a temporary double, asks for it, scans it, and returns it. So these are my 2 function definitions. Of course, if you were on a piece of paper, the definitions would go below the main function. And now I need to declare a character, char letter, and declare a double. And make the function calls. So the function call to getL is letter equals getL, and number equals getD. And that's the answer to that question. So hopefully this will help you to prepare for your exam 1. These are just some sample questions and actually this is more about giving you some tips on how to read the question and make sure that you, even if you cannot answer everything exactly, make sure that you answer every question, because there's no way to give any partial credit if there's no answer at all.